Back in her early days, she was totally reliant on Soho House to pay for her travel, to pay for her accommodation.
Going on. And Meghan and all the things that she has done to, pull other people down and to question them and their behavior. Well, let's continue to turn the tables and talk about you, Miss Meghan Markle.
The same man keeps popping up next to Meghan Markle, and those quiet whispers people used to ignore are suddenly getting louder again. Old photos are making rounds once more, pulling Meghan Markle and Marcus Anderson right back into the spotlight. Event after event, Soho House gatherings, Paris Fashion Week, even Disneyland trips with her family, and every single time, he's right there beside her. Not in the background, not off to the side, but right next to her again and again. And Marcus Anderson isn't just some random friend people overlook. In certain circles, he's known as someone with real influence, a gatekeeper to some of the most exclusive spaces in the world. The kind of person who can open doors quickly or quietly, make sure they stay shut. And wherever Meghan shows up, he's almost always nearby.
This guy has been around all of the time. Isn't that suspicious to you? Because it is for me. It is something strange.
At this point, it starts to feel less like coincidence and more like a pattern that's getting harder to ignore. That's why questions are starting to come back, questions that used to stay in the background. What exactly is the connection between Meghan Markle and the man who first introduced her to Prince Harry? Because once you start paying attention, some details don't fully line up. For example, Meghan has never been photographed alone at Soho House. Not once. Every single photo shows Marcus Anderson right there with her, no exceptions. And this is the same person linked to membership decisions, the same name connected to her introduction to Harry. And it doesn't stop there. He's been seen at major moments in her life, her baby shower, her wedding, even private family trips. And above it all is Nick Jones, the founder of Soho House, a man who likely understands what happens behind those closed, invite-only doors. These images don't just appear randomly, they begin to form a bigger picture, whether people agree with it or not. Meghan has often spoken about wanting privacy, but what's visible publicly gives a different impression.
Markle has never been a member. I don't know if she's become a member now, but she has been working for Soho House since at least 2005.
To some, it looks more like access, ambition, and connections that stand out to anyone watching closely. This isn't really about romance rumors, it's about proximity to influence and powerful networks. So what exactly is Soho House? It's not just a regular social club, it's one of the most exclusive private membership networks in the world, with locations in London, New York, Toronto, Los Angeles, and beyond. And getting in isn't simple. You don't just pay and walk through the door. You need recommendations, approval, and most importantly, backing from someone with status. And that's where Marcus Anderson comes in.
Was also Harvey Weinstein, very prominent. There were members. Meghan Markle was just one of the working girls for Soho House. Call girl, working girl, whatever you want to call it. That's what she was.
As global membership director, his rise wasn't instant. He worked his way up from being a waiter to becoming Nick Jones's trusted right-hand man. Now he helps shape guest lists for elite gatherings, playing a role in deciding which actors, models, and high-profile figures get access, and who gets turned away. Nick Jones built Soho House from the ground up in 1995, turning it into a global brand worth billions. And he's made one thing clear: membership usually isn't offered to people who attract too much media attention. That rule has been taken seriously. Major global names have reportedly been turned away. Kim Kardashian, Kobe Bryant, huge names with massive visibility. Too much spotlight, too much press, and Soho House reportedly said no. Which makes one question stand out even more.
Always lurking in their shadow. No normal family has a constant third wheel, male or female, leeching onto their every move. Marcus is practically glued to them.
How did Meghan Markle, at the time a cable TV actress on Suits, reportedly earning around $50,000 per episode, gain access to Soho House locations around the world? And how did she become a regular when even bigger names couldn't get past the door? One explanation keeps coming up: Marcus Anderson. The man many describe as the gatekeeper. Meghan built a close connection with someone who could unlock spaces most people can't even get near. Some people brush it off as coincidence. Others are not buying that. To a lot of observers, it doesn't feel random. It feels calculated. Being surrounded by wealthy, influential, well-connected people can change someone's direction fast. And then there are the photos. These are not your typical red carpet shots or casual group pictures. There's something about them that makes people stop and look twice. December 2014, Meghan Markle and Marcus appear together at an event. She's holding a large glass of wine, her arm wrapped around his back while he leans in close. Really close. Their faces nearly touching. The kind of body language that instantly gets people talking.
He started off at Soho House, London as a waiter, and he was a global membership director when he first met Meghan.
Then June 2016, just 1 month before she reportedly meets Prince Harry. At a Toronto gala, Marcus is in a sharp blue tux, Meghan in a simple black dress. His arm is placed firmly around her waist. The vibe in those photos feels playful, almost flirty, the kind that makes people pause and take a second look. And this is right before that well-known blind date. At that point, based on what people could see, she and Marcus already looked very close. Fast forward to September 2017, the Invictus Games in Toronto. Meghan is seated next to Marcus, their knees brushing in the crowd. Harry is there too, but the moment captured shows Meghan smiling toward Marcus, while Harry looks off into the distance, more reserved. That single image sparked a wave of reactions online. Then October 2025, Paris Fashion Week. The photo that spread everywhere. Meghan and Marcus walking through Paris holding hands. Not linked arms like friends usually do, but actually holding hands in a way that caught attention instantly.
A ridiculous story about how they first met. The whole thing was a tissue of inaccuracies to me.
Social media lit up with people asking, isn't this unusual? June 2025. Disneyland during a birthday celebration for her daughter. A family moment. And once again, Marcus shows up in the photos. But here's what stood out. Meghan posted the picture and covered his face with a heart emoji. If he's just a friend, people started asking, why hide him at all? And here's another detail that keeps coming up. Meghan has never been photographed alone at Soho House. Not once over the years. It's always Marcus nearby, or sometimes other familiar faces. But he's almost always part of the scene. Now this is where things get even more interesting. Soho House has a strict rule. Guests are expected to stay with the member who invited them for the entire visit. No wandering off alone, no separate appearances. Which leads some people to wonder if Meghan wasn't attending as a member at the time, but as Marcus Anderson's guest. And then there's Nick Jones. He stepped down as CEO in November 2022 following a health diagnosis, but he didn't fully step away. Reports say he stayed involved in creative direction and membership decisions, meaning he still had visibility into what was happening behind those closed doors. That includes private events, hidden rooms, and invite-only gatherings.
This gentleman right here, that's Nick Jones, the original founder of Soho House. Guess where he's going there? He's arriving at Meghan Markle and Harry's wedding as guest of honor. Oh yeah, Soho was present.
Because Soho House isn't just a social club. It works as a powerful networking hub where connections are built quietly. Deals take shape, relationships grow, and opportunities open up far away from the public eye. Nick Jones also owns Babington House, a countryside retreat that's been quietly linked to the early days of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Reports suggest some of their first meetups happened there, and once again, Marcus Anderson is said to be part of that picture. Sources claim he helped coordinate those meetings, handling logistics, and keeping things low-key. That goes beyond casual friendship. At a certain point, it starts to feel more organized. Babington House itself carries a certain reputation. Some insiders describe it as edgy, not just a quiet countryside escape, but a place where networking goes deeper than surface-level introductions. Behind those classic walls, conversations can carry real influence. Decisions, connections, and opportunities can all take shape in a setting that looks calm on the outside.
His job was to go to a new city wherever they were opening up a new Soho House, and his job was to find the best and the brightest of that city to invite to the founding members' party. And they didn't just invite anybody. To be a founding member, you really had to be somebody in the social scene of the city where they were opening up.
Then, there's the story of how Meghan and Harry first met. Royal biographer Katie Nicholl has suggested the public version might not be the full picture. According to reports, Harry approached Marcus Anderson directly and asked him to arrange a meeting with Meghan in a private room at Soho House, London in July 2016. That detail alone changes how some people see the beginning of their story. That first meeting was reportedly kept small on purpose, around 7 or 8 people in the room. Just enough to let Meghan and Harry talk without pressure or too much attention. But here's what stands out. Reports suggest Harry went straight to Marcus to set everything up. So why was Marcus such a key figure in that moment? Because he had exactly what was needed: connections, exclusive locations, and the ability to make things happen quietly. And just as important, he already knew Meghan well.
only becomes prominent for Soho House, guys, after she starts being on Suits and she's introduced to Marcus Anderson. And then she gets more consistent and more prominent work, okay? Because then she could be in the presence of Marcus Anderson.
Look at how that dynamic plays out. Marcus introduces his friend Meghan to Prince Harry, then stays involved afterward. He's linked to arranging private meetups at places like Babington House, securing access to Soho House locations, and staying present throughout the process. That's why some people refer to him as Meghan's fixer. And what does that mean? Someone working behind the scenes, making things happen, opening doors that don't easily open for others. That's the role Marcus Anderson is often associated with in these conversations. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. During her time on Suits, Meghan was a working actress. She wasn't a global name yet and wasn't deeply connected to elite circles. She had ambition, but access to those kinds of spaces usually doesn't appear overnight. Then Marcus Anderson enters the picture and things begin to shift. Suddenly she's traveling across Europe, attending exclusive events, meeting influential figures, and stepping into spaces most people don't reach easily. Invitations, introductions, opportunities. It all starts stacking up quickly. That level of access wasn't typical for someone in her position at the time. So naturally, people start asking how those doors open so fast.
Meghan has always had this very, very strange fascination with Soho House, very much this weird obsession with.
Marcus built his career on connecting the right people, understanding influence, and making introductions at the right moment. Once Meghan became part of his circle, it wasn't just a few contacts. It looked like entry into a global network stretching across London, Toronto, Los Angeles, and beyond. Wherever she went, opportunities seemed to follow, and many of those moments appeared linked to Marcus's connections. Some people see that as more than simple friendship. To them, it looks structured, access that feels carefully managed behind the scenes, and that leads back to the question people keep asking. What did Meghan bring in return for that level of access? Look at the trajectory. A cable TV actress becomes a regular at Soho House. From there, she meets Prince Harry through that same circle and eventually marries into the royal family. Step by step, everything lines up in a way that grabs attention. Some people see coincidence, others see strategy, possibly shaped by someone who understood how to move through elite spaces without drawing too much attention.
Knows, and everybody all around the world that you would want to know. The very rich, the very connected. Anybody who is anybody would be in Marcus Anderson's little black book. And he's never betrayed a confidence. He's never made a slip.
Now fast forward to recent years. Long after the royal wedding, and even after stepping away from royal duties, Marcus Anderson is still around. He shows up at key moments: the 2018 royal wedding, the 2019 New York baby shower, and the pattern never really fades. October 2025, Paris Fashion Week, walking through the streets side by side, holding hands in public. Then June 2025, Disneyland during a family trip. The same presence keeps appearing again and again. Some sources have even described Marcus as the second most important man in Meghan Markle's life, right after Harry, and even ahead of her own relatives. That kind of claim alone is enough to make people pause and think twice. And here's where things take another turn. Reports suggest Marcus prefers to stay out of the spotlight. That could explain why he didn't appear in the Netflix documentary and why Meghan chose to cover his face with an emoji in those Disneyland photos. But this is where the questions start stacking up.
So the whole time we're thinking that that's her husband, Jack Brooksbank.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out, guess who that mystery man was the whole time?
Was it Meghan's guy?
It was Marcus Anderson.
Marcus Anderson, yeah.
Why is she having dinner with Marcus Anderson, and why is he then going home with Meghan and Harry?
If this is simply a close friendship, why keep it so low-key? Why blur him out? Why not just say, "This is my good friend Marcus. We've known each other for years"? Instead, the silence seems to pull even more attention. Because when something stays hidden, people naturally look closer. His continued presence stands out, and the photos themselves seem to tell a story that people interpret in different ways. Once those moments are public, it becomes hard to control how they're seen. Take Harry's reactions when Marcus is nearby. Back in September 2017 at the Invictus Games, there's that moment, Harry appearing distant, while Meghan is smiling toward Marcus. Some observers have suggested there might have been tension in situations like that. Questions started forming about why Marcus was consistently close and why Meghan seemed to rely on him during key events. The dynamic in those moments speaks for itself, even without words. But think about Harry's position for a second. What could he realistically say? Marcus is the one who introduced them. He helped arrange their early meetings and was part of the very beginning of their story. That makes things complicated. Marcus was already in Meghan's life before Harry came into the picture, so pushing back on him could feel like questioning how everything even started.
This is what Meghan has been doing. She's a piece of Klingon, like she clings to somebody who can get her there. So Meghan manages to befriend one person of a very popular group, and then that person introduces her to the others. And because she's being brought in by somebody they trust, she's welcome.
That creates a tricky situation. If Harry questions Marcus's presence, it could lead to tension. If he accepts it, then he's accepting another man having very close access to his wife and inner circle. And considering Harry distanced himself from his own relatives for this relationship, any doubts, real or not, would carry serious weight. It brings up a bigger question about trust and everything connected to those decisions. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. What did Soho House actually offer Meghan? Because this wasn't just about stylish locations or exclusive parties. It was about stepping into networks filled with wealth, influence, and powerful connections that can completely shift someone's path. Figures like Ron Burkle, a billionaire investor closely tied to Soho House, are part of that world, someone Meghan likely crossed paths with through that same circle. Then there's Misha Nonu, a designer deeply connected in those spaces who became part of her network, Jessica Mulroney, linked to Canada's elite and the Toronto Soho House scene, and Serena Williams, a member who built a well-known friendship with Meghan Markle. A lot of these connections seem to trace back to Marcus Anderson's network, and together they may have helped Meghan move from being a working actress into someone operating in global high-level circles. That's not a small step. That's a major shift. The kind of change that doesn't just happen overnight.
Queenie said it best. It's downright bizarre that a man, gay or straight, constantly clings to a family like Marcus Anderson does with Harry, Meghan, and their kids. He is like a parasite, always lurking in their
That's the kind of value people believe Marcus brings. Not just friendship, but introductions, access, and real opportunities. Doors opening that usually stay closed. Rooms that are not easy to enter suddenly becoming reachable. And while Meghan clearly gained from that level of access, it naturally brings up a question people keep circling back to. What, if anything, was given in return? Because in those environments, time, access, and connections are rarely offered without a reason. That's just how those spaces tend to work. And those widely shared moments from late 2025 stand out for a reason. They suggest the connection didn't fade after the wedding and didn't disappear after stepping away from royal life. Marcus is still there, still showing up, still part of the picture. Take a moment and think about that. Some people believe Meghan's path into royal circles was closely tied to Marcus Anderson and the Soho House network. Through that access, she stepped into global recognition. And even after leaving royal duties, both the visibility and that connection stayed in place. That leads some to question what really mattered most along the way.
Meghan Markle's best friend, who set her up with Prince Harry, has vanished. Whatever happened to Meghan's best friend Marcus Anderson? The tall, handsome Canadian was third wheel in the early days of her romance with Prince Harry, and he was front and center at their 2018.
From that angle, Soho House connections seem to have played a major role. Harry may have been part of the journey, but others look at the bigger picture and focus on access to powerful networks. Now, as Meghan builds her life and brand in California, Marcus is still nearby, appearing to hold a similar role to the one he had years ago in Toronto. Nick Jonas attended Meghan and Harry's wedding, yet he has stayed publicly silent about her connection to Soho House. No details, no behind-the-scenes insight, nothing about what may have happened in those private spaces. And that silence stands out, because Nick Jonas would likely know exactly who attended which events, what kind of gatherings took place, and how Marcus Anderson operated behind the scenes. He would have seen how Meghan moved through those environments and built connections that later became valuable. But there's a clear reason for that silence. Soho House is built on discretion. That's the core of its brand. If private details about members were made public, that trust could disappear fast. So staying quiet isn't just personal. It protects the business. It keeps relationships intact, maintains appearances, and preserves that image of exclusivity. Meanwhile, those closest to that circle likely understand far more than what's publicly known. Marcus knows, Meghan knows, and Nick Jonas knows too.
Marcus fulfilling another role with Meghan Markle, and about there being lovely sailing days on the beautiful blue ocean.
Looking at Meghan's rise, the progression stands out. From a working actress with ambition but limited high-level connections to becoming a regular inside one of the most exclusive networks in the world. From there, meeting Harry, stepping into the global spotlight, and later stepping away while still holding influence and visibility. And through all of it, the same connections seem to remain close. Marcus Anderson remains a constant presence, and that consistency is exactly what keeps people talking. So the question becomes, how much of this was coincidence, and how much was carefully planned? When the same person shows up across major moments, events, trips, fashion weeks, high-profile gatherings, it starts to feel less random to some observers. This is someone who clearly understands how elite circles work, how to move strategically, stay low-key, and make everything look effortless on the surface. And the images only add to that perception. No statement can fully control how those moments are interpreted once they're out there. Meghan Markle doesn't come across as just loosely connected to Marcus. There's a visible closeness that shows up both in public and behind the scenes. Moments like walking through Paris together, side by side, naturally keep people watching and asking questions. Then there are the Disneyland photos. Covered faces, shared smiles, subtle closeness.
You have to question that, and you have to address it, and it has to be something that we continue to talk about, because there is something there that we need to find the missing pieces to, because I believe a lot of it was scrubbed off of the internet way before we even knew who Meghan Markle was.
Small details, but the kind that make people pause and look again. For many, these moments suggest the connection didn't fade after the royal wedding and didn't disappear after stepping away from royal life. So what exactly did Marcus bring into Meghan's world? Access, introductions, influence, connections to names like Ron Burkle, Misha Nonu, Jessica Mulroney, and Serena Williams. People with reach, visibility, and the ability to elevate someone's position. That kind of network opens doors most people never get near. And while Meghan clearly benefited from those opportunities, it brings up a question that keeps coming back. What, if anything, was given in return? Because in those circles, access and time usually come with purpose. Marcus had a role, and Meghan gained from it. Some see it as a two-way dynamic, structured, consistent, and maintained over time. Even now, Marcus remains present, still appearing in photos, still connected, still quietly influential in the background. That ongoing visibility is what keeps the conversation alive. It raises questions about priorities, loyalty, and the full story behind Meghan's rise. While Prince Harry was in the public spotlight, some believe Marcus was working more quietly behind the scenes, helping shape opportunities that affected the bigger picture.
So for Harry himself, he's now, in many people are suggesting, trapped. And as his mother famously said in that line, it's difficult because there's three of us in this marriage. History, truly, according to that source, is repeating itself. Harry is very much sort of whatever is suggested, he has to go along with.
That kind of influence isn't always visible, but it can leave a lasting impact. Some even argue that the photos say more than words. They point to a timeline that feels clear to them. Meghan's rise, her growing recognition, her expanding brand. And throughout that timeline, Marcus Anderson appears again and again, which leads to the question people keep asking. Why is Marcus still so involved? What role does he play today? He's not officially listed as part of her business team. Not a manager, not publicly named as a partner. Yet he continues to appear at family trips, major events, and moments like Paris Fashion Week, always nearby, always visible. Some descriptions even place him as the second most important man in her life. That idea alone stands out, because most friendships don't usually look like this. They don't stay this close across years, countries, and major life changes. That's why people start forming their own interpretations. One idea that keeps coming up is that Marcus was present through every key phase: Soho House, early connections, major introductions, and the shift into global attention. He saw everything unfold from the inside, and because of that, some believe his role goes beyond friendship. More like someone who understands the full picture and remains connected to it, even now. The positioning that eventually led to meeting Prince Harry didn't happen in isolation.
Like to think that Meghan would like that. Meghan likes to be number one. Meghan does not simply degrade Prince Harry. She degrades his entire family, his entire legacy. And this is a different kind of embarrassment. She has mocked his heritage, his traditions, his grandmother, the former Queen of England.
Marcus Anderson was there through every stage. Some observers even describe him as a kind of insurance, someone present at every key moment who understands the full timeline. From that angle, keeping him close could mean staying connected to someone who saw everything unfold from the inside. And that's exactly why these images keep spreading so fast online. For a lot of people, the dynamic still doesn't fully add up. The explanation sounds simple, but the visuals raise more questions. If Marcus is just a friend, people ask, why the hand-holding? Why the constant appearances? Why show up at private family moments? Why hide his face in certain photos? If everything is straightforward, why keep parts of it so low-key? Why not just say clearly, this is my friend? The more this connection stays quiet while still being visible, the more curiosity it creates. Questions build, interpretations grow, and people start connecting the dots on their own. Then there's Nick Jones, Marcus Anderson, and Meghan Markle herself. People who, in theory, would understand the full story. But none of them are publicly explaining it. And that silence keeps the discussion alive, because speaking openly could mean explaining how someone moved from a cable TV career into elite circles and eventually into the royal spotlight. If you've been following closely, one thing stands out more than anything else: the consistency. Year after year, moment after moment, Marcus Anderson keeps appearing in the same spaces, around the same milestones, tied to the same story. That level of presence doesn't go unnoticed, especially when it stretches across countries and major life changes. And that's why people keep coming back to the same questions. What exactly connects Meghan to this network that seemed to open so many doors? How did those introductions really happen behind the scenes? And why does that connection still look just as strong today? Because if this were just a typical friendship, it probably wouldn't keep showing up in the same way for this long. At the same time, there's still a lot that hasn't been explained publicly. The people who would know the full picture have remained quiet, and that silence leaves room for different interpretations. Maybe it is exactly what it looks like. Maybe there's more to it. Or maybe the full story is something only a few people truly understand. But one thing is clear: the images are out there, the timeline is visible, and the connection hasn't gone away. And until those questions are answered, people will keep watching, keep analyzing, and keep trying to figure out what really ties it all together. If you've got your own take, drop it below. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to Crown Clash. I post new videos every day.